Hey there, James here at Terrio Handmade Knives. We've got a Growl and CPM 154 we're going to play with today. I made a mistake on the etch. It's a little blurry, I don't know if you can see it from there, but since it doesn't look as pretty as it should, we're going to test it out and get it all scratched up and see how she does. As you can see, this is just our Christmas tree from a few weeks ago. I figure this is a reasonable test because this is the sort of thing you might do if you were out camping and needed some boughs for your bedding or a little firewood, you know. Once you get a little room to work, it goes quicker. Get these boughs taken off. See what we got here. End up with, you have a little ridge pole for your lean-to or whatever, you know. Try not to cut myself. It's actually easier when the tree's still standing. It doesn't want to walk away from you. And this is basically just to see how the edge holds up for us and show that even with a medium-sized knife, this is only a 5.5 inch blade, just about 3/16 of an inch thick. This is a full thickness tang, so it bounces right about there on that first bolt. So it's not a big heavy knife, but you can get to work with it pretty quick. See if we can make some room so you can see what's going on down in here. There's a nice one. Now obviously with a blade this short, you don't have the leverage you would have with the 8 or 9 inch blade. But you can still do some light chopping with it. We've really only been at this a few minutes, and we're better than half done. You know, I haven't even broke a sweat. That's part of the idea of using a good tool, is to not have to work so darn hard. If you were lost or had a cold or whatever, you wouldn't want to be using up all your energy just to get some stuff together for a fire, a debris shelter. And that's kind of how it goes. Kind of like that. We're just going to process this down a little further, make us some tinder and kindling. cut away from yourself whenever possible, of course. You might want to make you a little fuzz stick. You can see how wet this pine is. This has been cut 4 or 5 weeks ago and it's still pretty wet. When you're trying to get something going, the finer you cut it up, the quicker it'll dry and easier it'll get lit. So you just make your little fuzz stick like that. And of course, if you're real concerned about it, we'd save all that. Another way to get the real fine stuff is just to use the spine. So you make your little fuzz sticks like that. You want some real fine tinder. I like to leave the spine fairly crisp on that edge so you can just scrape with it and get that real fine tinder that'll dry out quickly for you. Of course, you can also use that for scraping a spark with your ferro rod or what have you. Again, it's difficult with this soft wet wood. It would actually be easier with hard dry wood, but it does work. I definitely prefer that you do that with the spine rather than with your edge. There's no sense dulling up that nice fine sharp edge just scraping on stuff. We'll talk a little bit about tip strength. This is ground pretty thin. Nice thin edge. It's CPM 154 at 58 RC. Now obviously that's not as hard as it can get. I like it for a good balance of toughness so you don't have to worry about the edge chipping out on you. And even with that fine tip, you can still dig in and do some fairly aggressive digging with it without worrying about the tip busting off on you. If you wanted to drill, if you're going to make you a little fire drill type of deal, you can do that. Again, the tip's fine. I wouldn't hammer it into a tree and go bending on it. There's really no reason to do that. But if for whatever reason you need to make a hole like that or dig through something, you can do that with confidence. So the idea is that a knife doesn't have to be insanely thick to be tough. Good steel and good heat treat goes a long way. And again, we're not burning a million calories doing this. Just taking our time. Let the tool do most of the work. Kind of like that. You do a little batoning here. I know it's a controversial subject. I'm not going to try to convince you either way, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people like to do it, and it does work when it's done right. I mentioned before I left this crisp on the spine for scraping stuff. I like to round them over just a little bit up here for batoning. It just doesn't chew up your baton as quick. Use a piece of wood. Please don't use a rock. No need to be in a hurry. Nice and easy like that. One thing that people can run into if they're using trying to cut a much wider piece of wood, if the blade gets stuck, they'll get the hammering back here. Don't ever do that. Knock it back out and start over. There's issues of leverage that are, you start hammering behind them. If the blade is stuck and you start hammering behind the guard and ricasso, you beat on it long enough, you're going to break something. So if the piece of wood is too big, you don't have to go right down the middle. Just work around the edges. In manageable little sizes. You're looking to make it smaller and get down to the dry stuff anyway, so there's no reason to make it difficult. Take your time. Ooh, hit a nice knot there. There we go. Nothing to it. Yeah, there's that knot we went through. Nothing to it but to do it.
Yes.
We're not seeing any rolling over on the edge. There's no chips in it. I'll try to get some still pictures later. I know it's hard to see from here, but the edge is held up fine. You can still make nice thin controlled cuts with it. All up and down the edge. Like I said, a big part of my theory is thin is in and light is right. With good steel and good heat treat, a knife doesn't have to be built like a tank to be durable. You can use it pretty aggressively and it'll still hold up for you. If you want to get some tinder like we were talking about before. That scrapes up a little better just because it is dry. Do some controlled cuts like that. Get you some tinder going on. Nothing to it. There you have it. Good and dirty, that's the way I like to see them. Knives are tools and they're meant to be used. Thanks for your time.